Welcome to the Call Like I See It podcast. I'm James Keys here with Tunde Ogunlana. And Tunde, for our call out this week, we are going to react to some recent research that argues that manhood size, so to speak, is actually more important to a man's feelings or to men's feelings than it is to women. So you sent me this and you said that you thought that this was a very interesting and telling piece, this research that we'll have it in the show notes. So tell me, what was your reaction? Why did this stand out to you as something that you're like, yeah, this is what was interesting? What was interesting about this?
Yeah, no, it's funny, James. That's why to me this stuck out, because I think it points a lot to I'll say this and beat up our tribe, the insecurity of a lot of men. Because I just think that we project out. I think this is a human trait. A lot of humans, as humans, we project out on others things that we have inside of us, whether it be an insecurity or a fear or something like that. And I think that for a lot of men, the size of their junk is something that they can be insecure about. Some may not be, but I think many probably are when they don't need to be. Especially as men with other things, when you think about money, when you think about clothes, when you think about cars, right? We like to compare ourselves with other men and see, where we stand in the pecking order type of thing. And so I think, obviously one's manhood and one's junk between their legs is clearly one of the greatest representations of what being a man or manhood what can signify that. So, I think the idea that women care less about it than we care about it in our minds is just something kind of amusing, because I think it's true. I think women care more about things like security, companionship, things that, and I'm not saying that in extreme cases, women don't care, that if a guy really had a very, very small junk down there, there would be no issue with a woman. I think, there's extremes on everything. But in general, I think it's something that most men probably do worry more than necessary about.
Yeah, I don't think you got to beat up men at all in this scenario, because the piece that we reviewed for this, they'll be in the show notes, talked about how this is evolutionary. Like that. Sorry. So one of the things that was really interesting about this is that it talked about how for primates, for those type of species, males, human males, the size of their manhood is larger in proportion than other primates. And they think that this is because it evolved in a way as more kind of ornamentation for attracting partners, so it's wired into us to know that is something that, hey, that can, make it happen for us in terms of our ultimate goal, which is procreation. So it seems like we're wired this way to care a lot about this. The thing that was really interesting to me about the study was that when like they were showing women, they would show women men's bodies and they would show the men's bodies and say, okay, and try to react to try to get their impressions and what their reaction. And so women tended to be attracted to the V shape, the broad shoulders, narrow waist, that and the size of the manhood. And up to a certain point, the bigger the proportions of the shoulders and the size of the manhood, up to a certain point, women, were like, yes. And then at a certain point, it leveled off. For men, it was, the size of the junk, how much they were intimidated by a potential rival just kept going forever. Like it never leveled off. It was just like, the bigger a guy is, the more other guys around him are intimidated by it. And so if you think from an evolutionary standpoint, again, and that's how you come to that conclusion, like, oh, well, that's because men seeing each other as in competition for procreation, for mates, then they're going to see that as if that's ornamentation, if that's like, that's for a buck, it got the antlers and stuff. For a man, it's like, so it made sense to me. I actually felt like, I should say this delicately, but I'm just going to throw it out there. I felt like it let men off the hook a little bit. It's like, we're wired crazy.
Well, we are. I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's and if you think about the wiring, that's why I said what I said about women too. I mean, women, traditionally through these studies have been wired to want to seek males as mates that can provide for offspring. Right. And that are protectors. And so that means that, yes, the broad shoulders and the size of the overall man Also, to a woman is
from
as
an
important
evolutionary
as maybe
standpoint, when physical
from
prowess would be a matter
that's
of how
why,
much food you could get.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like a man that is taller and maybe has broader shoulders, but maybe a smaller package down there than a guy who's, much shorter with a bigger package. The woman might be attracted to the taller guy with the smaller package who has more.
Now, just to be clear, though, Tunde is making this up. He did not get this from the research.
Well,
or I shouldn't say making it up. He's extrapolating from the establishment.
I'm trying not to. Just
there's no. I don't think that there's any scientific.
Trying to have a serious conversation. Yeah, in a scientific way about a conversation that can go left at any second. So, but it's interesting too, James, because think about it. As you think about modern technology and how that's probably changed this conversation. So think about this: 100 years ago, 500 years ago, 5,000 years ago, not everybody had access to see what a bunch of other people looked like and how their junk looked. But think about it, in the last, 50 years that, porn, the technology for porn to be disseminated all over the place. Think about what it's done to men and the potential to get more insecure. Because think about it, if you're thinking about anything that's related to entertainment, it's not real, right? A lot of times. So but if you think about the porn industry, the porn directors and casting people, they generally hire men to be, on the set and to be in the scenes that have much larger, the junk down there between their legs in proportion to the overall population. So I think a lot of men also just, in the recent generations, the idea of how big, someone else's stuff is compared to theirs might be a bit warped because of how we're ingesting,
I love the way you're going to bat for the men, man. Because, there's a lot of information out there about how the porn industry has created unreasonable expectations for women, like in terms of what
I think for men too,
or, like what they have to look like or what they should be doing.
I think that's
so
true.
You're pointing out how, what you're pointing out now, how that there's two ways of that, like there's guys that may be walking around feeling intimidated because they see the size of other people and maybe just decide that, hey, maybe I'm just going to opt out.
I mean, but think about this.
Well, no, let me, they may just be deciding to just opt out of that kind of life, of having sex, because they look at certain things and they're like, oh man, I can't compete.
Yeah. And I think that then can drive more of what we hear about like incels and this kind of toxic masculinity, because especially young men, think about 18, 20-year-old, 25-year-olds. If they're sitting at home and they're not getting they don't have the relations with the opposite sex or things that they, or in some cases, maybe the same sex, things that men need, that the testosterone needs to release periodically, then yes, it's going to manifest itself in the young man in other ways.
And men are wired to be intimidated when they see men with larger and larger stuff, and that stuff is everywhere on the internet. Then that could mess your mind up a little bit.
Yeah, you're right. That's a great point, because you're intimidated in subconsciously. Maybe not, the guy's not sitting there, in the same room or anything with you, but it makes you feel inferior.
If this is evolutionary, then yes, it's happening unconsciously. If you're not getting the
that's
attention,
what I'm saying is that,
and you see yourself as deficient compared to that could play a trick.
And that's what I'm saying, that this could be playing out different for human society today, because like we've talked about just in random discussions about history, think about life in a village 500 years ago or 1,000 years ago, or hunter-gatherers, meaning men only saw the men that are within their town, and then they didn't necessarily see them naked all the time, right? I mean, if you were swimming in the lake or something, you saw a couple dudes.
I love the level of expertise you have of men in villages 600,000 years ago.
Well, I have a great plastic surgeon. I'm a lot older than I appear. I was around back then, but it's just this idea, and I think you're right with the same thing with women, and not just porn, but the way all entertainment. I think the way we see women on screens is unrealistic, unfortunately, for a lot of women to have to try and compete and hold on to that. But I think you're right. From an evolutionary standpoint, if human males are intimidated by other men who are larger than them, and in this case, we're talking about in a sexual way, and that may cause them to retreat and not even try to then or be intimidated about how to deal with women.
If they're surrounded by it,
issue.
if it's happening unconsciously and they're surrounded by it in their entertainment spheres, which the internet does,
that's a huge issue, because the male frustration again will play itself out usually through violence and other ways in society. They're going to go out and do other stuff.
Well, let me jump back in. Let me jump back in, because the other thing I wanted to mention on this, and like kind of just going through the study, was how, like, and I thought you did a good job of connecting broad shoulders, large size of a person to the idea of what it would take to be a good provider in a society where your physical imposingness would directly correlate to how easily and how consistently you'd be able to provide food, shelter, whatever. What's interesting to me is like I was thinking about it in a modern life, in modern society. I wonder if like a luxury car has replaced broad shoulders, because the signals for what conveys to the opposite sex, hey, I would be a good provider, have changed. Like now, I would imagine, and like my experience has been that the broad shoulder thing, still exists, because again, that's millions of years of wiring. But there are probably additional signals that are social cues that also convey that message now, which one may cause other men, if it happens both ways, then it's like, that may be something noted and that some women may find attractive. It also would cause other men maybe to be intimidated by that, and so forth. So I think it's interesting anytime you're looking at this stuff and you're trying to unpack, because the point that was really interesting to me about this was the evolutionary nature of it, and the fact that this thing was considered ornamentation, that had evolved larger than other primates relative to size, because it was helping people be more successful in attracting partners, because that's why it would, that's why it would pass down evolution. So the fact that there's an evolutionary component to me, because I just never even considered that there'd be an evolutionary component to that, until now. So I found it to be interesting. Any last thoughts before we close it up?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think you hit it on the head with the luxury car, the big home, the yacht, all those things replacing, from an evolutionary standpoint, what the broad shoulders were during the hunter-gatherer phase. Because you're right.
Man, if that's the case, man, I've never seen your manhood, so good thing. But I know you hit all those other markers, man. You got the shoulders, you got the house, you got. So I think you're winning, man.
Hey, man. So, hey, thank you. But I'm just going to leave that one alone. But
and you're gracious. You're gracious. There you go.
Let me just finish in an eloquent way from a scientific, angle. So I don't get us in trouble here. No, but that's what I'm saying, James. If you look at it from an evolutionary standpoint of procreation, the male is going to be hierarchical, because he's going to be intimidated by the one who looks more dominant. He's going to want to dominate or move past the one that looks more inferior, all to get to the female so he can procreate. But if you look at the female from evolution, the female is saying, okay, I know procreation is important, but once I'm pregnant, once I'm raising a young child, I'm weak, I'm vulnerable, right? I can't defend myself. I can't go forage for food, all the stuff from the evolutionary periods or hunter-gatherer days. So I need a man that can provide, right? I got to be able to trust that this man, when I'm pregnant and when I'm, breastfeeding a 6-month-old, can go out and kill the bison. And so today, men don't need to go kill a bison. Men need to go work. Men need to go provide a roof over their head. Men need to go, make money. And what are the expressions of money? It's watches, it's cars, it's yachts, it's fancy houses. So I think you're right. I think that has replaced what used to be physical ornaments for men.
I don't think it's replaced it, though. I think it's just added. It's additional. It's added on top, because those other physical things
let's put it this way.
Work.
Maybe it's not replaced or even additional. I think it's why the issue of the size of a man's manhood is more of an issue for the men, is because that was never the main thing for women necessarily. It was about, can you just, make sure that I'm safe when I have a baby so that I can, so that
the study does indicate, though, it is a consideration for the women, just up to a certain point, it does indicate that, again.
Well, if we're going to have conversations about G-spots, James, then yes. So then that's a whole different show. So
hey, man, I'm talking about
trying
the
to keep it clean
material here, man, the source material.
Yeah, I was trying to keep it clean, and now you're going to make me go crazy.
No, but no, I think we can wrap from there.
That means we got to end it.
Yeah, I think we can wrap from there. We appreciate everybody for joining us on this call out. Check out, we also had a show, a longer show released today, so check that out as well. And until next time, we'll talk soon.